Hi, this is Sean Perrin, and you're listening to episode 25 of the Clarineat podcast. Today's episode will focus on a review of the past 6 months, look forward to the next 6 months, and discuss the summer tour and a few other sort of interesting things that I learned along the way podcasting this far. This episode, of course, is brought to you by D'Addario Woodwinds. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is redefining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with technology built from the ground up. By using the world's most innovative techniques to deliver consistently what was once made variable by hand, D'Addario ensures excellence right out of the box as standard, not a surprise. So you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit d'addario.com/woodwinds. Welcome to this special episode of the Clarineat podcast. This is the first episode since the very, very first episode 0 that we're actually going to sit down and sort of have a chat about where this has gone, where it's going, and some of the things that have happened. In episode 0, the very first episode, I actually laid down some of my ideas and thoughts for what might happen with this show. And I'll have to be honest, back then, although I did have a few interviews in the can, I really had no idea if this is something that the community would appreciate or take hold of, or I felt like maybe I was the only person looking for a clarinet podcast. But it's turned out that that's absolutely not the case. There's been an incredible response, 24 episodes of just amazing content with no end in sight. And it's just been really incredible. Guests like Martin Frost, Harry Sparney, Laurie Friedman, Evan Zaporin. I mean, if you're listening to this episode, I'm sure you've been sort of listening along, and you've had a chance to hear what those great people have to say. One thing I just want to quickly add is that when I first started this show, had the idea or the hope, I guess, to one day interview Martin Frost. That was kind of my main goal. And amazingly, I did that in episode 9, and I've had the chance to talk with just some other phenomenal guests that really it's been a life-changing experience getting to talk to these people, and I hope that you've also enjoyed it as well from the other side of the studio, so to speak. Another really fantastic element that has really been a success is the giveaways. We've had giveaways delivered all over the world, and every single episode of the show has had an item for giveaway. And this has been CDs signed by artists. This has been barrels, bells, ligatures, all sorts of amazing stuff. And it's so great to be able to try these things and then share them with listeners. I think it's created a really interesting way to experience products and kind of get people excited about it. Of course, if you're just listening for the first time, do make sure to go and subscribe to the email list at www.clarineat.com and click on the link that says giveaways, and that will make sure that you're eligible to win these items. As you may remember, when this show first started, one of the ideas I had was to pool all the social media likes from Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of thing. But unfortunately, that doesn't really work, and I'll just explain why real quick. Facebook does not allow you to export your contacts. Instagram doesn't allow you to do that very easily. It became, it's almost like a growing pain problem, but as the list got into the thousands, it became a real hassle to try and do that. In fact, it became impossible. There was a limit to the number of people I could export from some platforms. So in light of that, and just to make things a little bit easier all around as far as contacting guests, email turned out to be the most direct way to do that. So what that means is that a guest can also add themselves to the email list simply by subscribing. Of course, you can also remove yourself very easily if you should want to, but I haven't had, to my knowledge, anybody do that yet, so that's really great. Even episodes that have not had a reasonable thing to give away, such as the episode with Raisa Falman, we talked about her clarinets, and at the end of the episode, I was thinking, well, what do we give away here? She doesn't want to give away her clarinets, which was too bad, but obviously they were hers. So what I ended up thinking about was, well, how cool would it be if I could partner with a company and we could provide a giveaway no matter what the circumstance was. And D'Addario Woodwinds has jumped on board, and they have been graciously providing one giveaway a month to make up kind of for the episode that is not having a physical giveaway. And I have to say, people have been super excited about this. They've got a chance to try the new reserve reeds that they have, any strength that they want, some mouthpiece patches, some of the reed cases, and I even have some of their ligatures now to give away in the coming months. And another thing that I have is the new type of reed case with the little humidifying pouches in there. So look for those in the coming months from D'Addario, and I'm just so happy that they've jumped on board to support the podcast. It really would not have been possible without them up to this point. So I just want to give a huge shout out to D'Addario Woodwinds. Just thank you so much for supporting the show and seeing the vision, even before it's really even been within a year. Like, this was just several months in, we sort of had that partnership go down. So really, really great. By the way, I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, but if you are at Clarinet Fest this year, make sure to pop by the D'Addario booth. I'm hoping to have some pamphlets out there, and I'm going to try and stop around a little bit and say hi to people and meet as many people as I can, really. So one other thing I wanted to talk about was the stats. I think that the stats from the blog and the podcast thus far have actually been really interesting. And I guess before I talk about the stats, I should mention that I did have to add a blog element. I guess I didn't have to, but I felt compelled to, because so many things I was thinking about didn't really justify having an entire full-length podcast to go over. So, for example, I had a little bit of fun with the Adobe stock photos there. I'm sure some of you saw that. And one thing I've been trying to do actually is use those funny pictures in a creative, productive, practical way, and see if it's possible to make posts that sort of allow that content to be engaging in a real way. Another sort of fun post was Radiohead, a clarinet tribute to Radiohead, where I posted a bunch of clarinet covers on a page. I gave a little tip about how to refinish the clarinet's gold logos, and wow, that post really took off and actually had over 1,000 hits in a single day, which I was really surprised to see. So anyways, there's been quite a few posts there. I've been trying to be pretty prolific over the summer here while I got some time off to do that. But the one post I kind of want to focus on and even just give a little bit of a rundown was the stats of the website and kind of what's coming up, like I've been saying. So I was really surprised, first of all, that the show has broken 10,000 downloads as of about mid-June, maybe late June. So, kind of late news now, maybe late now that it's late July, but that's a pretty huge number. I mean, there's only 24 episodes, and some quick math, I believe, would I can't do that in my head really, but I think that's around 200 or 300 plays an episode on average, which is great. That's some really great response so far. The top 5 episodes have been Martin Frost, number 1, Ryan Pereira of 3D Clarinet Innovations, number 2. And, that one actually surprises me a little bit because, I mean, it's great for Ryan. I think he's got a great product. We did have a great conversation, but his company was rather new. So there must be a lot of interest in 3D technologies, or, I was also thinking that maybe the shorter length of that episode was rather enticing. So if you have any feedback about that, I'd love to hear sort of why that episode has just really skyrocketed with the views. But anyways, Martin Frost has a commanding lead. Ryan Pereira is in second. The third episode, which was most listened to, was actually Leger Reeds with Tim Elvey. We had a great chat about their synthetic reed products that you really should check out. The fourth most popular episode was Catherine Ladano. We talked about improvisation and contemporary performance. And the fifth most popular episode has been Tom Pawalski. Now, with Tom, we did have a great chat, of course, but I also just really wanted to give a shout out and a thank you for the music at the beginning and end of the podcast. He graciously provided that wonderful melody at the beginning. And if you'd like to check out some of his recordings, you can do so at soundcloud.com/klezmertom. I'll put a link to that in the show notes just so you can have a look. So the top 5 ways that people actually listen to the show, this did surprise me also. Number 1 was on the computer with something called RSS feed, which that sort of includes anything like clicks on the website and And I think it's plays that are sort of embedded in other people's websites through Facebook shares and stuff. But that one had a commanding lead. Second place was YouTube, which also was surprising because it's, not technically a podcasting platform. And that was actually a last minute idea. I had to throw them up on there as well. And actually, it's one I don't understand because I don't know what people are watching. It's just an audio podcast, but maybe they just leave it on in the background. I really don't know. The third most popular way was the iPhone, using the podcast app, and the next three are kind of related to that. The fourth most popular way was also on the computer with iTunes, using their podcast section. And the fifth most popular way was actually on the iPad, using the podcasting app again. So I guess what I can sort of extrapolate from these stats or sort of assume is that there's a lot more Android users out there than I thought, and maybe the RSS feed is sort of populating that way. But yeah, the iPhone and iTunes and iPad, I really expected to be number one, but it didn't turn out that way. The Clarineat podcast has been listened to in over 50 countries, which wow, that's amazing. I can't believe that it's gone around the world like that. And the thing about that stat, I actually have no idea how many countries it's actually been listened to because my hosting service only gives the top 50. So, I mean, we could be well into over 100. I don't know. But the top 5 countries are the United States of America, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the Netherlands. So it's quite an international audience, and that is reflected, by the way, in the people I'm contacted by, the sales from the website, the giveaway winners. People are all over the place, and I'm so happy to see that it's out there in such a capacity. The top 5 cities where Clarineat is listened to, I was surprised by this actually because my hometown of Calgary has a small lead over a place that I've never actually heard of called Hobart, Australia. So I had to look that up on a map, and I was surprised to see that it's a little city of less than 200,000 people. And I just want to thank you guys heaps for listening. I don't know who exactly is over there, sort of spreading the Clarineat love, but someone is sure passionate about it. But yeah, in Calgary, I guess I sort of expected that because I've been pretty present with the band teachers locally, and the students, of course, my students have been tuning in and listening to the show when they can. But yeah, Australia was definitely a surprise. The third place city was New York. Fourth place was Toronto. And the fifth place was Chicago. So the top 5 cities, 2 are in the States, 2 are in Canada, and 1 is in Australia, of all places. So yeah, thanks so much for listening, everybody, all over the place. One last thing about the stats is that the website itself has page views over 30,000 times, which is, again, really astonishing. It's been an amazing response, and I'm so happy to see that people are enjoying the content. But one thing that surprised me is, and again, there's no way to track everybody, and maybe some of this is wrong, and there's only a couple means through Google's tracking and YouTube which provide accurate stats, but it appears that 85%, yes, 85% of listeners and viewers are men, and only 15% are women. And I'm really surprised by this because if I think about it, even we've had some female guests on the show. I mean, Sue Ryle, Lori Friedman, just to name 2, Catherine Ladano, and I don't actually consider clarinet to be a polarizing instrument in that way. If it's not 50-50, and if anything, I actually would have assumed it's more women playing. So yeah, I found that a little bit confusing. So I don't know. We have to figure out a way to get more ladies listening to the podcast, I suppose, and checking out the website. But yeah, again, if you have any feedback about any of this, I just love to hear it. And but yeah, that's sort of the end of the stats section of this episode. So now I'd sort of like to address what's coming up next. And really, there's a lot. I've decided slowly to transition into a slightly different focus for the show. One thing that's come up a few times with guests is the fact that I've been overwhelmed with things to talk about. I'm so fascinated by their history. I want to learn about their CD. I want to learn about their teaching techniques. I want to learn about everything. But what I think I've decided to do is that many guests have said they'd be willing to come back for a second or even third interview. And I think what would be better is if I focus down with guests and say, for example, one coming up here with Francois Houle, we talked the entire time in a little bit of a shorter episode format about extended techniques. And I think that that's going to be a real focused way to have some conversation and really let the listener leave with something and go, okay, yeah, I really learned that today. Or I think what that'll help with too is if you're going looking for some sort of advice or thought or discussion, you can find it right away without having to listen to 7 different episodes to find out what certain people thought about some topic. The other thing I'd like to do once there's a larger body of content, it'd be kind of interesting to actually pool some of the resources together and say, okay, well, we've talked to 50 people here. What were the general thoughts on education or extended techniques or whatever, and just sort of pool that into one episode for, I don't want to say easy listening. It's still rather, educational and intellectual maybe to go through, but I do think it would provide an interesting sort of platform. But anyways, some other upcoming guests that I've planned and are confirmed. Again, I don't want to bring up any guests that aren't fully confirmed, but we're going to talk with D'Addario Woodwinds. And actually, along the lines of what I was just talking about, I'm going to be talking with one of their reps about their artist representative program and the company on a whole. And then I'm going to try and focus down and talk about sort of more mouthpiece design and product design with someone else from the company in a separate episode. I'm super excited. I'll explain more about this in a minute, to be going out to Vancouver to meet with Bakun Musical Services on location. I'm going to get a factory tour and conduct an interview out there, and really looking forward to that. That's been a very requested company, actually. I just spoke with Francois Houle today, and he's also in Vancouver. Maybe I'll have a chance to meet up with him while I'm there. That would be great. And Lori Friedman is coming back for the round 2 conversation, where she's going to be answering listener questions. So if you had a listener question the first time that did not get answered, or if you have one you'd like to submit, please go ahead and do that. I'm going all the way to Montreal, and one of the things I'm doing while I'm there is speaking with her. So it'd be a real shame to miss the chance to ask a question while I'm there, or ask your question while I'm there. So with the summer tour, I'm heading out to Montreal, as I was just talking about, to see Lori, and I'm also really excited to be going to the Radiohead concert and doing a few other things. If you're in Montreal, or if you know of someone else in Montreal that I really should be getting in touch with while I'm there, please fire me an email at feedback@clarineat.com, or feedback@clarineat.com, or send me a voicemail on the website. Just go to clarineat.com and click send voicemail. You can get in touch with me that way. I'll also be seeing Radiohead while I'm there, and as some of you may know, they just released a new album and they're on tour, and I'm a big fan, so it just seemed perfect. After that, I'm heading directly to Kansas for the 2016 Clarinet Fest, which I'm just super excited about. I'm hoping to meet up with as many people as possible, just to say hi and chat about the podcast. As I mentioned before, spread some pamphlets, and I'm hoping actually to conduct a few interviews on site with people who, of course, I'm not there yet, so I'm not going to announce exactly who in case something doesn't happen, but I do have word that there'll be some pretty interesting people there, and I've already tried to sort of reach out and connect in a way with some of those. So look for a good chunk of interviews to be coming from that week out in Clarinet Fest. It's going to be a really great time. And for those of you who are there, please come up and say hello. I'd like to meet as many people as possible. And then, of course, in August, later August, I'm going to be out at Bakun Musical Services, and as I just mentioned. So that's going to be a really great trip as well. 3 cities, 4, I guess, if we include the fact that I also went to Penticton earlier in the year. I think it's really great to sort of take this on the road a little bit and maximize the time, for example, by going to the Clarinet Fest. So so that's a 6-month review. I hope that was in some way interesting, or provided some sort of value as far as getting to know what's happening here a little bit. Before we wrap up, I want to just touch on one thing. And to be honest, I was kind of thinking about how to bring this up. But one important thing that's coming to mind, or that's been sort of on mind, is that this show has been taking, it's a labor of love. I'm really enjoying doing it, but it is taking between 20 and 40 hours a week to produce. And that has, come at a cost of sometimes actually giving up other opportunities in order to make sure that this has been effectively done. One of the elements that I would really like to see going forward is just to try and grow the audience by, if everyone listening could share it with friends and leave a review on iTunes, that would just be perfect. If you do feel that you want to support it directly, you can go on the website. There's a store on there where I've got some great products for sale. That'll provide sort of a direct support of the show and what's doing as far as adding value, if you feel it's adding value to your Clarineat life. And the other thing you can do, actually, and this is new, there's some pages that have affiliate links to various companies. And basically what an affiliate program does is you purchase whatever you're going to purchase anyways. And some of these links, actually, you can purchase whatever you want. And it doesn't cost you a penny more, but a small percentage of that goes towards the show. So that's something I'm exploring. It's an interesting option. And I don't know, this podcast has been such a great thing for me. And I'm not looking for really a handout or anything like that, but it'd be wonderful if I could really cover the costs and feel as if it's valued in the community that way. So I guess that's my main sort of call to action from this episode is if you're enjoying the show, please share it with your friends. Please leave a review on iTunes. That'll help it go a long way to gaining a bigger audience. And if you'd like to, please go ahead and support this show through purchases on the store and the affiliate links. Thanks so much for listening to the Clarineat podcast, and I'll see you next week with a fantastic 2-part interview with Francois Houle. Sanding, shaping, balancing. For centuries, mastering your instrument meant mastering these crafts too. But now, D'Addario is redefining craftsmanship for the 21st century by refining their reeds and mouthpieces with technology built from the ground up. By using the world's most innovative techniques to deliver consistently what was once made variable by hand, D'Addario ensures excellence right out of the box as standard, not a surprise. So you can spend less time sanding, shaping, and balancing, and more time perfecting your own craft. To learn more about the new era of craftsmanship from D'Addario Woodwinds, visit d'addario.com/woodwinds.